Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to Retro Reviews. Now, we are finishing the main... Well, we finished the main trilogy already. This is the next Karate Kid. This came out in 1994. This is not directed by John G. Alvidson, and the only returning cast member is, if I can point correctly, Mr. Miyagi himself. So, as I just mentioned, this is the next Karate Kid. The plot for this thing on IMDb is so weak. It just says, Mr. Miyagi is back, and he takes a new pupil under his wing, an adolescent girl who is troubled. This adolescent girl who is troubled clearly doesn't have a name on IMDb, but is starring Hilary Swank. I think this was her main breakout role. And we're going to be talking about it. I watched this like a matter of hours ago. I'd never seen this film before, so we're going to discuss it thoroughly. But before we do, just over to the socials.
Absolutely, guys. So, as we always say, the best way to find out what we're going to do is to find us on our social media stuff. Obviously, we're pre-recording stage. Sometimes we pre-record, sometimes we go live. And the best way to find out when our videos will come out is on Facebook, Cinema Savvy, and Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. And of course, we've enjoyed all the comments with the interaction on these, the Retro Review series. We've had the Rocky films, with the Creed films, and we've had the Karate Kids. This is all leading up to something slightly bigger. But we want to know your opinions on this, so do comment along with us, do share. And if you are enjoying these, if you are looking forward to what else we do hit that subscribe button, because coming tomorrow night is going to be both of us live discussing season 1 and 2 of Cobra Kai. This is going to be more of a catch-up, more of an informal review, a chatter of what's happening. Myself as someone new to it, Chris is someone that knows it. Obviously, everything that's happened. So we're combining the both because, as we know, Cobra Kai Season 3 is out this Friday. And we'll also have our short spoiler-free review up this Wednesday. And we are going to have a spoiler discussion on Season 3 once you guys at home can watch it. So we're going to have 2 more Cobra Kai videos after Season 1 and 2. And again, get us on our socials to find out when we're going to do this, because even we don't know where we're going, as there's almost dark night quite there, which we keep saying for different conversations. But that being said, it is time to talk about the next Karate Kid. I made the point that yesterday. You said it in our Karate Kid review. Easily one of the worst titles of the film, which I guess sets the tone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, we just did our Karate Kid 3 review, and we mentioned that the franchise itself, the trilogy, felt like it was sort of like diminishing returns, like they were running out of ideas, and it was good to end it there. I don't know whose idea it was, clearly the studio trying to make bank, and, you know, maybe we can come back in the mid-90s with another Karate Kid film, recapture the magic of that first one for a new generation, you know, slap a new face on there with Hilary Swank, brand new protagonist, and let's see if we can't get another franchise out of this thing. And they clearly didn't. So this was like the first attempt of 2 to get something going with the Karate Kid films. And then obviously after this in 2010, we had the remake with Jaden Smith, which we will get to at some point, probably after Cobra Kai. I'm feeling very Karate Kid out at the moment, and we haven't even got to Cobra Kai yet, but we're still very much looking forward to that one. We've got to get this one out of the way first. So I know this is sort of something that we did with Rocky, not so much with the Karate Kid films, because, I mean, you are fresh to pretty much the majority of them. I'd seen the original trilogy. That was my sort of bread and butter. That was my Karate Kid. And this one I always just stayed away from. For whatever reason, it's just, I think the biggest reason is it's not Daniel LaRusso, is it? It's not the dream team. It's not that duo that's been built up for an entire trilogy of films. It is completely throwing a spanner in the works and doing essentially a soft reboot of the franchise with this one. And I think it was just general negative word of mouth, and I want to try and preserve the things that I like as much as possible. Even with some franchises, if I know that like a slew of sequels are terrible, I probably won't watch them, and I'll just stick to like the main core ones that are generally regarded as good. But that being said, I was curious about this one because, you know, as I mentioned, like retro reviews give us the opportunity to talk about franchises that either one of us has seen or, well, in this case, neither of us had seen at this point. So even in terms of the actual franchise we're talking about, there are entries that I know nothing about and we can talk about it. So that's sort of were my opinions going into it. I was open for it to be good, maybe not necessarily good, but maybe there was something in there that was enjoyable, whether it be a villain like we talked about with Karate Kid 3, maybe a villain with personality or some aspect of it that I could gravitate towards. And I didn't really get anything from this film. I hated this film. I don't even know, why was this film made? I don't, like, in terms of a story, it doesn't advance the story at all. There are a few mentions to like Daniel LaRusso. You have Bill Conti returning with the music, so you do get some nice familiar themes from some of those early Karate Kid films. But beyond that, it's just so pointless. There is no need for this story. Even as a soft reboot, it's kind of weak. The story is terrible. It doesn't recapture any kind of magic in me. It doesn't really fill me with any, like, I don't even like say it's self-confidence, but that inspiration that you get from like some of like those earlier Karate Kid films or moments or training montages or anything like that. It was kind of a waste of 2 hours, really. I'm glad that I've seen it now, just for like the sake of completion. I can tick a box and say it's done, but I will never watch this film again, probably. In fact, I'm pretty confident in saying I will never go back to this film after watching this time.
Yeah, this is the only reason they can call it the next Karate Kid is because it's got Pat Morita in it playing Mr. Miyagi. There's clutching at straws, and then there is let's really bring him back. Let's bring him back, and this is what's really sad because he's so likable. Even in this film, as an entry point, he's the best thing in it, as we would expect and we would want. We wouldn't want it to be bad, but it is. It's pointless. I'm not going to say it betrays the franchise. It's not that kind of thing because there's only one character returning, not even in the same setting. It's set somewhere completely different. It's trying to be different. The motives are different. It just doesn't feel like it has any right being a Karate Kid film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's abnormally standing out for that sort of reason. And it's such a shame because, we've had issues with 2 and 3, and they aren't as good as the first, but my word, they at least they are acceptable within a trilogy, that they still join up together. This is kind of like, you've had your dessert, which is fine, and then someone, what's that horrible thing, like cheese and crackers? It's like, no, thank you, get this out of my sight.
And I love cheese and crackers. What are you talking about? That's an awful comparison.
Not after your 3-course meal, though.
Oh, maybe I could make some room for cheese and crackers. Maybe that's just me. Weird food tangent. I don't know. Get commenting. Do you like cheese and crackers? This is a whole debate going on right now.
It just feels like that. Like it has to be connected, and they want it to be connected, but it really shouldn't. And just time to let it go. And it did eventually get let go, and then it became The Karate Kid, starring Jaden Smith and Will. Well, I don't know if Will Smith's in it, but 16 years later, their second attempt at rebooting it before they finally accepted. Let's just go back to the original stuff and let's get Cobra Kai going. And this is what's weird because I've not seen pretty much anything Hilary Swank's in. I think she's been in a couple of things I've seen. I've not seen $1 Million Baby. Obviously, I know she's done it for Oscars and she's won stuff. Yeah. And it is like her big breakthrough. And she has athletic moments in this, but we kind of spoke whilst you were watching because I saw it a couple of hours before you. And so why does she learn karate? And it's kind of, well, she's not really getting bullied. She runs into a street, and because he sees her jump on top of a car, I was thinking this, he watches her jump on top of the car, and because her grandparents knew karate, that was enough for him to decide to make her the next Karate Kid. Not say you're getting bullied at school, which she is, by a weird military group, which is weird. I thought, oh god, Cobra Kai's evolved, like not Long John Silver. Terry Silver has really evolved. Like Cobra Kai, like they're now military and they're everywhere up and down the country. Like he fulfilled his promise. I was like, no, it's this school teacher that's getting people into the American RAF, whatever their flying ones are called, and you have to be a part of his like Hitler Youth Academy to be in the Air Forces, and it's like, okay, but we're training her because she jumped on top of a car. Brilliant. I think that says everything you need to know. I just think this film's a real shame to be compared to the other 3. I know I'm kind of off tangent, off point, and I'm almost ranting now, but there's nothing in it. It's a shame because Mr. Maggie's great in it, and you can tell he's giving it his all. He's not charming anything, and he feels consistent to what he's been in the previous 3 films. He's even got his own character arc. I like learning more about his history. Again, even if it's grandparents, someone saved his life in the war, he repaid him by doing karate. And it's so sad because it's like, I don't ever go into film saying I want to hate this at all. But this one's kind of like, this is doing so much wrong. And then it'll drop something out and it's kind of like, oh, it's like, I'm learning little bits. And I don't even dislike Hilary Swank's character in it. She's not really likable as such, but I think the key thing is this is the 90s now. This is mid-90s. And it feels it, and it doesn't really work for the Karate. It doesn't feel like this kind of thing could be taught in the 90s. I think that's probably a better way of saying it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's one of the biggest things that struck me actually when I was watching this film, because I've been so used to the Karate Kid that I have been watching the 80s, as I mentioned, like big 80s fan. The soundtrack, the look, the feel, everything. When you come to this one, it is inherently a 90s film, which I know is a stupid thing to say because I know that this came out in 94, so it's absolutely redundant saying about that. But there is a moment where it will just cut to like Moving On Up by M People in the soundtrack, and I'm like, oh, this is a. I'm not used to this tone in Karate Kid. This is different, and of course, it's the mid-90s. It's a very, very different feel to it. But yeah, I mean, if I was going to give positives to this film, performances definitely of the main sort of like core cast, I would say, are definitely strong. Hilary Swank, you know, I've seen her in Insomnia and Million Dollar Baby are probably the big two that I've seen her in. I know she's had, you know, a big long career of many, many other films, but those are the two main ones that I've seen her. And I think she is a tremendous actress in what I've seen her in. And she's good in this too. You know, she does have her line delivery, some sort of like more character moments where she's opening up a bit to Miyagi's character. You know, it does hit the emotional beats it needs to, and she does play it very well. I will say the writing at the beginning is very clunky in how it gets across that exposition. It's you know, as you know, my parents died in a car crash X amount of years ago, and it's just like, okay, you're doing that for the respect of the audience, but it's that really awkward dialogue that has to get across a character's backstory in X amount of sentences rather than just letting it play out as the film goes on. She was fine in it. I did find her really obnoxious, though, for a good chunk of this film, especially at the beginning. And I know that she's acting out of anger because of the death of her parents, which they explicitly say, as I just mentioned, but she's really unlikable. She's kind of like how Daniel LaRusso was throughout the majority of 3. But at least in that film, you'd had 2 previous films with him in, so you had more time with his character. I just really didn't like her for the majority. And it's not even that she played it badly. It's just that as a protagonist, I didn't find her particularly interesting in any way. And that's, you know, when I messaged you halfway through, I said, did I miss something? Why is she learning karate? What has she got to... Why? At least with Daniel LaRusso, you know, he was getting picked on, he was getting bullied at school, he was coming home with like, you know, a black eye, a bloodied nose and everything, and he needed to try and man up, and he was looking for that father figure. And I guess you do have a similar aspect in this with her relationship with Miyagi, that there is by the end of it almost sort of that surrogate father kind of role going on there, you know, where she's getting ready to go to... It's their prom, isn't it? I think that they're going to, and you know, he goes and picks out a dress for her and teaches her how to dance and is very fatherly. And those were probably like the nicest sort of emotional moments in the film, I thought. And you're right, like Pat Morita as Miyagi, once again, like he's doing the best he can with what he's got, but I don't think that he gets anywhere near the amount of emotional scenes that he got in the previous films. One, he's brilliant. We always mention that moment where he gets drunk and he opens up about his history and his wife who died in childbirth and the death of his unborn child. In the second one, it's all about him and his history and the death of his father, and we get those nice emotional moments. Not so much in 3, but there are still moments where he shines through. And I'd say this is probably more in the vein of 3 with him in. He's perfectly serviceable, but there's just not enough meat to it. And there isn't that close enough dynamic, really. Going back to the first Karate Kid film, where I keep saying it is really like a son discovering a father and a father discovering a son that they never had, and bonding together. Although you have like a father-daughter relationship, it doesn't really come to the forefront for me, and it just feels like a bit of an afterthought. I don't really get much from it.
Yeah, and it's strange because they've got these good moments throughout it, but then the some of it feels off. His other stuff that's not with her, like the whole monks thing, I didn't really understand.
It was like the quirky, like 90s humor, wasn't it? Just really awkward comedy.
Yeah, and that I don't think that worked. And yeah, these great bits with him, that drama stuff, you know, the daughter, when he, even if something as weird as him walking into the room and him apologizing because, you know, I'm used to my old student Daniel. I liked when at least he got a name drop in it. I didn't know if it'd be this we can't bring him up type thing. But even those little subtle things I liked. It's probably a better term, it's serviceable, but he just doesn't have anything to do. At least in the third one, they have ultimately the master losing his apprentice type vibe, and you can see the emotion that Mr. Miyagi's struggling throughout that film. Whereas in this one, it just doesn't really amount to much. And even when he gets that final fight at the end, which is the Rocky Five street fight this time, on a docks, it's kind of like you know what's exactly going to happen because it's going to reach a point where Mr. Miyagi has to step in and end it for them, and it just doesn't feel satisfying either when you get to that moment.
Well, it just feels like the whole villain thing's just thrown in there. It's so ridiculous. It's not even ridiculous in the sense of Terry Silver from 3. It's not really. I guess it is cartoony in some respects, but you just don't care about the villain, which is a shame because he's played by Michael Ironside, who's a brilliant character actor. A lot of 80s and 90s films that he made that was absolutely brilliant in. But yeah, and it's kind of awkward to see Pat Morita fight as well. Like it's great, but it's just he's getting on in age by the time of this one, and it's not fluid, and it's not. It's just feels like you're watching an old man fight. It feels like the scene from Irishman where you've got Robert De Niro kicking someone on the ground.
Yeah, that's the one, and it's at least it's not CGI'd him to make himself look younger in a flashback. I guess we can say that. But yeah. Speaking of the villain, maybe I don't know if it's worth a brief talk. You mentioned Michael Ironside. Maybe one of the best things in it. Completely weird that. Not to again get into the real life stuff, but a teacher at a school that runs a mini military unit that actively encourages students to punch him, and he fights with them during school time, and he encourages it. And
it's like, who okayed this on the campus? Like,
yeah, and like I loved it because it was. But the problem with it is 3 was like, oh, look at these amazing over the top evil villains. They're excellent. More of them, please. And this one was like, no, this is a bit weird. It's not quite that. And it's kind of like, okay, why did you like Kreese? Because he was ex-military and because he was over the top with Silver. Whereas this one this is just pure military and he'll be over the top, but it's the wrong over the top. And he's got, even going back to that comparison first, he's got his squad of goons. It's got the leader. He's no Johnny. They're all boring. Young Walter Goggins. I loved that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, I've seen something like pre-Tarantino. And he was the same as everything else he ever does. But you knew exactly where the story was heading, what was going to happen at every moment. Every character arc was obvious where they were heading, and it just wasn't satisfying to watch. And I think as an overall, it was just not even underwhelming. There was no expectation, and then there was nothing arising past that. There was, it was a film I'm never going to go back to, is what you said at the start of the review. It's a shame that this was made. However, that being said, if Hilary Swank rocked up in Cobra Kai, I wouldn't mind. As a polite guest episode, like, this Mr. Miyagi taught me to, that kind of thing. I don't mind things like that. But I wouldn't want anything else to do with it. And definitely no Jaden Smith, please.
Like, I guess it is part of the legacy somehow. Although I did read on IMDb they mess up Mr. Miyagi's first name in this. Like, how do you do that? Like, did you watch the previous films? Like, but yeah, no, I would love to see Hilary Swank come back for like 1 or 2 episodes. I think it would be a nice crossover. I think it would be a nice nod to this film, a nod to this film's existence, and that would be okay. I don't need to see all of these characters come back from this particular film. But I think because she is like front and center of this, maybe we could get Walter Goggins to come back and just go, remember that background character from the next Karate Kid? He's back in it now. Very successful actor that he is now. Yeah, and there's just it's so paint by the numbers. It's not even worth talking about this film, really. It's like when we hit live on this, I was like, oh, we need to talk about this film. And I'm really genuinely struggling to think of anything to talk about. What I will say is there's this whole subplot going on in this film where Hilary Swank's nursing is it an eagle that she's got, or some kind of bird of prey, and it's got like a damaged wing, like a broken wing, and she's looking after it. And then there's probably some weird spiritual connection about how you've got to let it fly and live your life. I don't know. Did that even come into the plot? That's the ending shot of the film.
It was that kind of, oh, the eagle's wing might be fixed, but you need to like let it go, and it's that the Inception one, isn't it? It's the take a leap of faith. It's just like let the bird fly, see if it flies. It's basically that, and it doesn't amount to anything. It doesn't feel meaningful. It's just weird, and this is being kept in a cage at school as well.
Yeah, it's just a pointless thing. There was also like weird cuts in this film, weird edits. Like there's a scene where I don't even like love interest is fighting jock villain on the roof, and they're sort of like hanging each other off over the edge of the building. And then it cuts, and then she's back with the eagle, and it's like the next day. I was like, well, what happened with that fight? Did they just stop fighting and walk off? Did they agree a truce? Was there like an armistice or something? And then, like, no, wait for the tournament in Karate Kid 1. Was there some moment like that? Weird edits like that. But going back to the eagle really, really quickly, the eagle was making sound effects. There is a point to this. I'm not going crazy. I was listening to the noises that the eagle was making, and it sounded like Abu, the monkey from the animated Disney film Aladdin. And I've just checked it now, and apparently Frank Welker, who's probably has the most credits of any voice actor in existence, he's done countless stuff. He's like the voice of Megatron in the old G1 cartoon. He's the voice of Scooby-Doo. He's done hundreds and hundreds of other stuff. He did the voice of Abu in Aladdin, and he did the voice of Angel. Oh, it's a hawk. Sorry, Angel the Hawk in this film. I knew it. I knew that sound effect. So whether they just used it from Aladdin, I don't know. That's weird that they did that. I don't know why they chose to get a voice actor for the voice of a goddamn hawk. Just surely there's a sound library. You could just get the sound of a hawk, or you could just film the hawk on camera. This is a weird tangent. This is what I've had to resort to talk about this film, because there is nothing else to talk about this film. Final thoughts, give this one a miss. If you're new to the Karate Kid franchises, maybe you've been following our reviews and you've been watching them alongside, stop at the trilogy, skip this one, because in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it matters. Maybe it will be in like X amount of series time if Cobra Kai continues. We know that a season 4 is in training, as it said in the trailer, is in production at the moment. If they go past that, maybe they will sort of like go to Hilary Swank and start mining stuff from this film when they run out of stuff to mine from the previous 3. But this was just like a waste of like 2 hours to me. It was a story that didn't need to be told. It was even as a comeback, as a soft reboot, as a way to revitalize the franchise, it didn't really do that to me. The protagonist didn't stand out to me, although the performance wasn't awful. The writing wasn't there. The story was terrible. And it was just unnecessary. They should have just left well enough alone after that trilogy. Maybe they thought they could make a quick bit of cash, banking on a name like The Karate Kid. But even then, the main trilogy dipped with that third film making 40 million. They knew that the audience wasn't there. It was a product of its time. Move on. Cobra Kai works now because as audiences, they've definitely gone for more of like an 80s. 80s, what's the word I'm looking for? Nostalgia is really popular at the moment in a lot of films. A lot of TV shows are going back to that decade or setting things in that decade. Some more successful than others, not looking at Wonder Woman 1984, but there's an audience for that kind of stuff there now, and going back and resurrecting some of these earlier franchises. But 5 years after the fact with this one, I think it was too soon, and it just feels lazy and pointless. It feels cheap as well. Again, feels like a made-for-TV film.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to echo all of that. It's something I'm not going back to, something that I thought was pointless and irrelevant, and not, there wasn't enough time to have passed to even consider bringing back Karate Kid. It was 5 years after. That is nothing. There are films with far bigger gaps. Cobra Kai has had the right gap, and it felt like a quick cash in. Remember this, but bringing it back, and it wasn't. It was remembered enough for people not to want to go back, and unfortunately, just didn't have the outlook people were looking for. So, the same, Chris. If you've already watched it, you probably already watched it. If you want to have a clue about it, really don't. Just go back and go rewatch the first one, or go watch something new, something else, something different. But that's probably everything I'm going to say on this. Leading into what's next, though, something we are looking forward to talking about, something I'm going to be very, very new to. We have the Cobra Kai review coming up tomorrow, Tuesday the 29th, 8 p.m. GMT. We're going to be live. We'll be discussing season 1 and 2, going into that, and then obviously thoughts and hopes for season 3 and whatnot. So check us out for that. We're looking forward. And as we always say with social media stuff, comment below with your thoughts on, well, the next Karate Kid. Comment how you think it compares to that trilogy. Do you like this film? Do let us know. I don't know if there are any people that do like it, but I'm curious to know your thoughts. And if you would like to see it tie into Cobra Kai, that's probably actually the best question you can have from the film. Is it worthy of being tied to the series or not? Your answers are going to be different to everyone else's, of course. But if you want to find out when we're going to do our videos, we've got a lot of stuff coming. Obviously, it's New Year's this week. We're going into a new year of film stuff. We're going to be planning a lot of content. So the best way to find out when we're going to do it, when we're going to do our videos, is finding us on Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, and also comment along with ideas you want to see us to do. As you said, we're almost done with the Karate Kid stuff now. We're on the TV stuff, we're on the modern stuff, and we have a lot of things coming. We've had a lot of films that have been postponed that are now going to get released across the next year brackets, we hope. So do check them out. And also do check out some of our recent reviews. We've got Chris's Wonder Woman watch along from Christmas Day. We've also got a Wonder Woman review, a Soul review, and of course, as you said, the other Karate Kid trilogy. So a lot of things coming up on the channel. And as usual, a big thanks to everyone for watching at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are going to request a franchise that we take on next after Karate Kid, please make it a bit shorter than the Karate Kid. I think about 1, 2, maybe 3 films at max, just for now after this. But yeah, I am going to start watching some Cobra Kai episodes tonight. We have a lot of episodes to get through before we get to that review. We're going to get it done, though, and it'll be awesome. And yeah, this has been great. So we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Take care.